All right, everybody, welcome to Photoshop. We're going to deep dive into this, and everything that we learn today just kind of snowballs into the next thing. So we're going to start with a very simple exercise, and I don't have an example to show you, so you'll see that at the very end. Today we're going to, here's the interface, but we're going to use the brush tool, the hand tool, the zoom tool, the move tool. We'll look at the layers, we'll look at masks, etc., etc. Before we get started, you need to go to Google and do a simple search. I like to use this image, so water droplets on leaves, leaves, let's do that. Image search. And since we're working in Photoshop, we're dealing with pixels, and so I'm typically looking for a high-res image. We want one with a lot of water droplets. Something that's 540 by 360 is low res. So I want you to take the time to find something that's high. Here we go. I've got something in the thousands by 900. I'm going to right click that and copy it. And what's going to happen is that area that it saves on the computer is called the clipboard. Say it to yourself, clipboard. Right click copy, that's the clipboard. Or even command copy. And look, so when I go to File New inside Photoshop, you'll see that Photoshop's asking, do we want to make an artboard the same size as what we have copied in our clipboard? And we're going to say yes. And so here in a second, I'll double click this. What I'm going to do before I do that is actually call this BWWC. So that's black, white with color. And let's go ahead and get in the habit of putting our names on these things. So I'll do Josh Kern, you'll put your name, okay? And then I'll double click this. Now in Illustrator, and then I'll hit Command V to paste it in there. And you'll notice that our image fits perfectly within the canvas. And that's one thing I want to talk about. In Illustrator, it's called an artboard. In InDesign, it's called a page. In After Effects, it's called a composition. In Photoshop, it's called a canvas. And so this is our canvas here. Your canvas by default is locked and is called background. And just out of habit, I like to unlock this, and sometimes I actually like to delete the background. So I'll just go ahead and do it, not a big deal, but I just wanted to show you because inside Photoshop you have these checkered background, and that means that you're dealing with a transparent background. So that's something different that you don't find in Illustrator. While you can export something to be a PNG with a transparent background, you can actually work in transparent background in Photoshop, okay? So I'll hit Command Z to put that in there. Let's review some of the tools here. I'm not going to get too deep into the interface because I don't want this video tutorial to be too long, so I'll just show you some basic things. Today we'll use our Move tool, which is essentially kind of like the black arrow. Its hotkey is V, and so I call it the VOOV tool. Our hand tool is still spacebar, and our zoom tool is still Z, and we can zoom in. So we're going to be using those tools quite a bit. Today you're going to be using the brush. So let's go ahead and tap B. And what I want you to do is, if you hold with your left hand, Control and Option, not Command, Control and Option, push those with your left hand. And then with your clicking of your mouse, just click normally and the red dot will appear. And when I go left and right, so right makes the brush bigger, left makes it smaller, and I can make that brush have a feathered edge or a very hard edge. And so I'm going to have a brush, that's going to be, when we start painting, I'll let you know. All right, over here into our panels, you need to make sure that you can find your adjustment panel. If you can't, you can always just go to Window and look for the adjustment panel somewhere right there, okay? It should always be up there, and I'll help you set up your interface when I get back. What we're going to be looking for is the black and white, and I have a small laptop screen here, so my interface is a little bit different than maybe yours on a larger screen. Look for the one that says black and white, and sometimes you just might have to hover your cursor over it to find it, but it looks like this icon. All right, so now I'm going to kind of close this a little bit because we don't really need that, and what we're going to be really paying attention to is our layers right here. So here's a trick question. I want to see if you can answer it. Is my image black and white? If you said no, technically it's not, you're right, because look, when I hide the black and white filter, the image is still color. And so what makes Photoshop so beautiful is the layers palette, and it's what allows for non-destructive editing. Destructive editing means that if I take this and actually grab a brush and paint over it, you'll notice in my layers, in my little thumbnail right here, there's actually paint right on it. See if I can make that larger so you can see it. There we go. You can see there's paint on it. I ruined those pixels. We can't get those pixels back. I mean, I can if I hit undo, but if you imagine we went too far and I ran out of undos, you can't get those pixels back. So we can do some things that are destructive, but it's always good practice to learn how to do non-destructive editing. One way to do that is to duplicate a copy of your image. And I like to say duplicate because the duplication shortcut is after selecting the layer, you hit Command J. Now we have a backup copy right here. And that means if I've actually accidentally done something to our layer here, you can say, oops, and you can't undo it. You could always just drag that down to the trash and voila, you have a new one. And I'll hit Command J. Let's talk a little bit more about the layers panel right here. This is how you add a new layer. So Photoshop, you use the layers palette kind of in tandem with what you're doing. A lot more than what you do in Illustrator. So we need to make sure that we're really utilizing this. I like to drag this up so we're maximizing a complete view or as much view of the layers palette as possible. And so if I paint on this layer, you can see that I actually didn't paint on the leaf layer. I painted on this layer. And what's different in Photoshop than Illustrator is the fact that when you do something in Illustrator, it makes a new layer for everything that you do, but that's not the case in Photoshop. So you need to be very purposeful. You want to say, I want to paint in this layer, therefore select that layer, because I can change the color and paint white in this layer. And I can do so many things in this layer. Where in Illustrator, it makes a new layer, new layer, new layer for everything that you do. All right, so I'm going to delete that. Yes, I'm going to delete that. And so what I want you to do is practice at least making a layer and then deleting it. You can also drag it down to the trash. Boom, sometimes faster. All right, now let's go ahead. If you haven't made a black and white adjustment, go ahead and do it. Let's bring it back and note this, that you can, oops, don't mean to do that, Command Z. I'm going to drag this whole layer down, and you'll notice that this one right here is black and white, but this one is not black and white. And so if I hide that real fast, you can see that your adjustment layers affect everything that's underneath it. And so since this one is on top, it's not actually being affected. Go ahead and move that back down, so now everything's being affected. All right, now let's get to the actual assignment here. So you need to be able to acquaint yourself with the zoom tool, the hand tool, and I'm going to focus in on a water droplet here. So something like that. This is our mask, and if you can think about if you were to paint your room, you would grab masking tape. You have trim around your door and on the bottom where it meets the floor, and you'd grab masking tape and you'd stretch out some masking tape and lay it up against that. So when you paint, you can kind of paint over the tape and then peel the tape off and you've cut a nice crisp line. So this acts like masking tape. And when we select our mask, and note this, my layer is selected, but my mask is not. So we need to make sure that we're selecting our layer here. And I'm going to tap B for brush, and I'm going to go ahead and hold Control and Option and just click with my mouse and go left to make it small, because I'm going to actually paint in this water droplet. So that's obviously too small and inefficient. Don't do that. That's too big because it's not going to fit. So I'm going to go something like this. And I don't want it too soft of an edge or nor too hard because it will look unrealistic. So I'm going to kind of go like that, okay? Just kind of eyeball it, okay? I'll zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, and B for brush. All right, so there we go. Now X, I want you to tap X and I want you to see what's changing. If you're looking at my colors right here, X is changing. And when you select your mask, you can only use black and white or essentially grayscale here. And so since my mask is white, I can't paint white on white. Nothing's going to happen. So I'm going to hit X to make sure black is up. And watch what happens. I'm going to paint black on my mask. And I'm not painting the color on my water droplet. What I'm doing, because the color's already there, watch, I'll reveal or I'll hide the black and white adjustment layer. What I'm doing is I'm saying, you know what, Photoshop, make everything black and white, but the area right here, I'm going to mask off with masking tape. I don't want you to make that black and white. And so that's how masks work. And we're going to do some insane editing. This is how you are able to do really cool, basically anything cool that you see out there is done through the beauty of masks. Now, here's another thing. If you mess up, of course, you can always hit Command Z to undo. But sometimes maybe it might be faster because let's move to another one. I'm going to use my hand tool here. I'm going to shrink my brush. So this is part of the exercise. Kind of an annoying thing because I'm going to have you do like you need to have a lot of water droplets like this one, and you're going to need to do at least half of it because what I'm trying to teach you is practice using the tools. Kind of like if you learned some chords on the guitar, I'd have you play those chords 50 million times. So that's kind of the idea here. using your hotkeys fluidly like this, okay? So I'm gonna paint inside here, and let's say I was brushing. I haven't let go of my cursor yet, and then, oh, oops, mess up. Well, I don't wanna undo that, because then I'll have to redo that. So for me, it would be faster to hit Command-Shift-Z to redo that, and then watch, if I hit X and now have white up here, I can brush this back. And it's kind of like erasing. So white is like revealing this black and white adjustment layer, and black is like concealing the black and white adjustments layer, saying don't make it happen right here. But with the white, it says make it happen right here. So let's go, oops, I need to finish that. And so what you're ultimately doing here is just using your hotkeys and working as fast as you can. Kind of the idea is to do this as fast as you can, because if you can do it fast, it means that you are learning the tools. Once we've mastered this, I'm going to show you how to make some selections, and then once we've mastered and work in multiple documents, and once you've mastered that, then we're going to start doing some really cool text effects, and you're going to be designing some t-shirts for the OHS Storm Store. And so this is how I would work. That's going to be way too slow. Let's get our brush a lot bigger, kind of just bulldoze this area. We want to work smarter, not harder. And the idea is that when I grade these, I want to make sure that it looks like that you're staying inside the lines, okay? So I'll make you redo it if you have stuff like that, because the lesson is to know that you can brush those sorts of things back, okay? All right, and you can see that's the black and white with color, with layers, adjustment layers, exercise. You need to do like 50% of this, if not all of it. Great practice if you do more. All right, saving this, Photoshop, a little bit different. When we save in Photoshop, we go to File, and we're ready to submit. We go to File, and then we go to Save a Copy. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna save a copy, kind of like we're exporting it. And we've already named this earlier. If you didn't name it earlier, go ahead and name it. And let's save it to our computer, because we're gonna turn it in. If you don't see much of your stuff here, click this icon right here, that'll open it up. I'm gonna save it to my desktop. And right here, the file format, if it wasn't defaulted to JPEG, go ahead and change it to JPEG. And then hit save, and then this option of resolution is gonna appear. Since I could care less about this, just go ahead and make it low res. So something like, I don't know, in the middle, 5, all right? Doesn't need to be 12. If you were doing this for a client or we wanted to print this, we would for sure make sure the resolution was high quality right there. And then you'll hit okay and then submit that. I'm not gonna hit okay. And that's basically it for the black and white with color layers. All right, see you in the next one.